Many of us fall into a trap. When we're talking to somebody and they ask us the question, either what do you do or how do you do it? The wrong answer is to tell them. It's the wrong answer. Why is this? The reason is that everybody else is going to say the same thing. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere. If somebody's talking to you about doing business with you, they're talking to other people and they're looking for an option. Who's going to win? Who's going to get that business? The person they trust the most. Now, that could be because there's a warm referral, of course. It could be that somebody advocated for that person. So how do you break through that? Well, you create a stronger sense of trust. It can be done. And you do it in a series of phases. And we're going to talk about the opening phase of this in this video. The idea of an elevator message never made any sense to me. And the reason is that there's more to the conversation than the ride in the elevator. It's a long conversation and it can go on for many months or even years in a very, very complex enterprise sale, which most of the people here are not undertaking. So what's that first piece if it's not an elevator message? It's to reframe the dialogue in the context and mind of the person you're talking to. So you're entering their world. You're coming back around from their point of view and looking back at you. What happens when somebody does that? There is an immediate resonance if you get it right, and an understanding that you're the only person who understands if nobody else does it, and they probably don't. We're in an area where, an era where solution selling is becoming commonplace. Solution selling is basically just moving beyond talking about your product and identifying through questioning the situation that the person's grappling with and providing a solution to that situation and selling benefits. It's not good enough because everybody else is doing it. Now, if you're just talking about yourself and selling features, then you're way far. You're out of the running. And you may get lucky. You may have some good warm referrals to get business, but you're not going to win anything new. So how do you move beyond solution selling? There's a lot of different ways to do it. And I'm just going to talk about one way that part of this opening. There's a lot of other components that have to be in place, but I'm not going to overload this video with all of them. To overcome the differentiation, to stand out from other people who are good at sales and providing solutions as opposed to just features of a product, you want to introduce the conversation with something that really gets that other person to sit up and take notice. One of the best ways that I've seen to do this was brought to the market, at least where I've seen it, by a guy by the name of Josh Braun. And he's a sales expert. I love his approach. I got to give him credit for it. And I use it all the time. The opening approach is following this format. So when somebody says, what do you do? Or what's this all about? Or, tell me about how you work. The answer is, it's really frustrating for people like whatever your target market is. So you got to know your market or this isn't going to work. So you got to identify who your market is. You're going to miss this. You have to identify the stories they tell themselves too. You're going to miss this. So you're opening by saying, it's really frustrating when you're self-employed and you're just putting all this time and money and effort and attention into your business, but you're not feeling a sense of security. You don't have the life that you want out of it. And you're just frankly not making enough money. That's my answer to the question, Larry, what's Revenue Climber? What do you do? So I'm not saying you say that. I'm saying use the framework. So the beginning of the framework is, isn't it frustrating when it feels frustrating? It's often frustrating for people. However you want to say that conversationally is what matters. And then you go into if X, then Y. So isn't it frustrating when you're self-employed and you're just not making enough money? You don't feel a sense of security and safety in self-employment. And what I've noticed is if you're self-employed and you know what to do every single day to make money, and you found that little secret that works for you, everything in your life changes. And all of a sudden, self-employment becomes vitalizing and exciting again, where it had been difficult and felt a sense of drudgery in it. I'm answering the question, what do you do? Isn't it frustrating when, if you do this, you get this? I did not talk about myself at all. I didn't talk about a solution for them either. And I didn't pound them with a bunch of questions before I built the relationship, before I began to build that relationship. Now, if you don't hit it right, you'll know, because they're going to look confused. If you hit it right, you got a dialogue going. And it's fine if they say, what do you mean by that? I just want to know what you do. That's fine, because you're still orienting them, taking control of that conversation and moving it in the direction you want to move it in. But most of the time, I find people just get excited and they feel like, oh, there's something here for me. This person gets me. And that's how you're going to win. And you're going to help them more if you're coming at it from that angle. Now what happens? So you started by saying, isn't it frustrating when you're living this life of self-employment, you're not getting what you want out of it? So you can vary that quite a bit. You can play around with it once you understand the baseline you want to talk about. I find that when people who are in that situation know what to do every day to make money, and they have a community built around them, and they have the kind of resources they need, they can afford to succeed, everything changes. And all of a sudden they're making tons of money, they're excited, they're creating a lot of opportunities, and they can actually even say no to business opportunities. So I altered it. You can alter it. You can have a lot of versions of this depending on who you're talking to, but you got to say it boom, 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 or it doesn't work. So that's the beginning. Isn't it frustrating when, if you do X, you get Y? Now we talk a little bit about ourselves. We're still not talking, and we're still not answering the question, what do you do and how do you do it? We're not answering that question yet. It won't help you to answer that question at this point. Would it be interesting to you if, would there be value in, would you like me to? Now you have to have built an offer stack. In other words, it's called a funnel. You have to have built a pathway for them to enter, to help them understand what you can offer them and the transformation you can make in their life. And that's, again, a whole nother conversation. How do you build a series of offers? How do you build a funnel? We're not going to get into that here, but you need that initial offer to be really good. It's got to be clear. It's got to be easy. It can't have a lot of risk to it. So in this case, the offer would be something like, I built these events. You can come to the events. You can meet all kinds of people. You got all kinds of great ideas. You want to sign up. So that's one offer. I can make another offer depending on where I think they're going and where the conversation goes. I could say, I have this community. It costs, basically it's anchored in a mastermind. We've got different types. Let's figure out which type you are. So I'm going to need to ask you some questions. And it's typically, it's like, $49 a month or $40 a month if you pay annually, and that's it. Yes, no, you get a sense of where they're coming from. And now you're going to get into another phase, which I won't go into in this video, which gets more to the solution selling piece and market intelligence gathering. The fundamental principle here is that if you really understand, you really truly understand, because you've taken the time to get this information and you've talked to people, you haven't guessed, really understand what your customers are thinking, what their desires are, what their motivations, what their needs, what they really care about, then you're going to connect with them very deeply if you speak in a way that resonates, where they understand that you get it, that you're an expert, and that you are going to be able to deliver a result and a capability that seems different than what's generally available in the market. And the reason it seems different is you're speaking differently. If you're speaking differently than your competition, People will see you as different. You'll stand out. Hopefully this is helpful. This is one way to do it. It's a way that I really like, but what I would suggest is that you think really hard about that one moment you've got to make that great first impression. If you blow it, and you just can't blow these meetings, they're often too difficult to get. You don't want to lose those opportunities. You're going to find things really transform for you when you start to get this right and execute it as part of your normal practice.